I have a lot of favorite passages, but that poem, her son's name's Callum, so I said, oh, do you know the poem, Callum? 104 years ago, I was doing a play in Fredericton, New Brunswick, and CBC hired the cast to read poetry on the radio. I had never read poetry on the radio at that point, so I was quite nervous about it. And the first day was local Fredericton aspiring writers. We were going to read poems that they had written because they'd won some kind of competition, and one of the awards was having your poetry read in the air. That first day, reading this poetry, I couldn't do it. I tried, and I couldn't do it. It just wouldn't flow, and it was the actor's nightmare. I mean, if this happened to me at this age, I'd just go, well, I can't do it. But then, you know, you're a young actor. And then John Douglas, the producer, had to keep coming in and trying and trying. And so anyways, that horrid day was finally over. And the next day, I was going to have to read poems by Milton Acorn, who is a Canadian poet from Prince Edward Island. And I loved Milton's work, and I hadn't met him to that point, but I did later. So I thought, oh man, this is awful. So I went down to the river and read the poems out loud, and they just fell out of my mouth. And it was one of my first realizations as an actor that good writing is easy to work with, is a joy to work with. Bad writing is very difficult. If you're doing a play, learning your lines, bad writing is so hard. But if the play is well written, the script falls out of your hands within a couple of days. And that one poem that I had to read at that day, and that's how come I know this poem from that day, and that's going to be 25, 30 years ago anyway, well longer than that. It was Callum. He had hair like mustard seed, shoulders a scoop, eyes a lake, you see the rocks on bottom. And his voice swung a loop with music in what it said that tangled inside your head. Callum was his name, pronounced as if he'd sign it in the sun. From the island he came, though I don't know which one. Oh, it was on and on, but it's very weird saying it. Isn't that amazing? Yeah. Something like that was sitting in your head for 25 years, and I know more of it too.
I was a policeman for 32 years, and I used to watch you on the playing the detective on the Cold Squad.
Oh, yeah.
And I knew at least 6 detectives that could have been you.
Yeah.
Man, you nailed that character. You nailed it absolutely. The good and the bad traits. And I'd like to know what research you did.
Well, that was the Cold Squad we're talking about again. The creator of that was a man named Matt McLeod, and he was in the RCMP. I think he retired while we were doing Cold Squad. It was his last year. So I, of course, learned a lot from him and hung out with him. But it was his friends, too. We went and hung out, and of course I had to drink again. The research for an actor, right? Drink with these detectives. So that's where I did the research. It's just running my vacuum through his brain and their brains. But it was interesting being with Matt McLeod, because he got into the RCMP around the time that I got into acting. And at one point, I had left quit school halfway through grade 12 and was hitchhiking around the country. And how I ended up in Ottawa looking for work, I have no idea. That's 1965 or something, I'm looking for labor work in Ottawa, I don't know. But at one point, I did go into the RCMP recruitment offices and asked if they were looking for a guy like me. It didn't turn out, it was just a whim, and I went off and did something else. But I ended up going to the National Theatre School, and getting to know Matt, he was saying that, wow, while I was at National Theatre School, he was at the RCMP thing. In 1967, I ended up on the street in Toronto, willfully so. In Yorkville, it was in '67, the Summer of Love, and I lived on the street in Yorkville as a hippie. And At that, so it was funny that the parallels. Matt and I ended up together, and I'm basically playing him. But at that time, I was into, you know, like selling dime bags in the street and smoking and doing LSD and all this stuff. Well, he's off going off to school learning how to bust guys like me. It was great.
I might have almost arrested you.
Television shows are often these setting places for various pranks on set. Can you think of anything that is a good prank that you either were a part of, fell victim to, or witnessed while on set of Battlestar Galactica?
No, I'm going to have to think of one, because that's probably a good question I'm going to get. See, I'm new to these cons, so I'm not, no. I mean, no. But I think it's on all point. I'm sorry, man, you've been waiting all this time, and what's his answer? No.
This isn't a question, it's just a comment, but we're getting so many, like, everyone's all getting together with the internet and with television. We're getting Canadian and American all mixed up, and people are saying Z's instead of Z's. But if ever I want to see a true example of the Canadian accent, I always think it's you, because you're just sort of like the epitome of how a Canadian speaks. I just want to thank you for that.
Thanks. I guess you all know the story of, I told you yesterday that I went and auditioned for Battlestar Galactica, I got called back in, and Michael Rammer said, oh, you're right, you're perfect, I want you for the role, but the producers in LA think you're too Canadian. So they said, too Canadian, we're in outer space, man. We're in indeterminate time, what are you talking about? No, they don't like the Canadian accents. So of course, I'm an actor. I redid the audition and get rid of the accent. But and the producers were all over us when we first started shooting Battlestar Galactica. You come up and say Hogan, you get a little regional there, and I would drop it. But I noticed over the years they got lax because I would hear, I mean, majority of people on Battlestar are Canadian, but you'd hear a new actor come on and go, whoa, he's regional, they're getting lax.
Well, this will be your last question. Did you take home any props?
No. No, quick answer to another question. No, at the end of the season, I think they gave me my chair back, and the odd time I think I was given dog tags. But when I was down at the auction, at one point at the first auction, I said I was going to leave, and then Todd Sharp and Alec Peter said, we have something for you, Hogan. And they gave me a shadow box with an eye patch and flask and badges, etc. It was like stunning. And they said, you know, man, you're the only one who never ever asked for anything. But you know, I'm an actor. Well, I want to go home and look at this stuff. You know, just before we go, I told yesterday, I said about the very first day of principal photography on the miniseries. I'll always remember what date it was, because the day before principal photography, my daughter went into labor with our first grandchild. And she went in late in the afternoon, and I've been at the birth of all my children, so I know that especially the first child, it's going to be a long time giving birth. So I thought, oh great, I'm going to be on set not having slept. But she gave birth to Dylan and Elizabeth Wednesday Hogan at about 8:30 that night, and the next morning we were on set for Battlestar Galactica. So Dylan's 6 now, so I know when Battlestar started. That first day was a huge scene. It was the scene that the funeral for all the victims of that we had on board Battlestar Galactica of the first attack in the miniseries. And first time any of us have been acting together. And if you remember the scene, there was more people in that scene than there are in this room. It was huge, and all the principal characters are there, and we're up on this stage, and Adama's at the podium, you know, Tyson here, and he gives this speech about how the human beings have to take responsibility for what they've created. And we're thinking, well, what are you talking about, man? But not many actors know each other, and it took about 5-6 hours to set that scene up. So the first take, everybody was kind of losing focus, because you've got a lot of background actors who are not really care as much as other, because they're starting to lose focus. Eddie says, we're rolling, and Eddie says that first speech, and he ends the first speech with, so say we all. And we've said, and in the script, it's so say we all, and we say so say we all, and that's it. And so we end the speech, and Don says, so say we all, and we go, so say we all. And he looks at everybody and says, so say we all. So say we all. And of course, you see the scene, he keeps saying it until everybody is saying it and meaning it, right? And by the end of it, doing it, everybody was standing at attention and yelling and meaning, so say we all. And cut, and I thought, man, oh man, we are in for a ride. So it'd be cool to have this number of people, and we should end it up with, so say we all. So say we all! So say we all! So say we all!